Welcome, everybody. We have a call tonight that I think is going to be incredibly informative about something that is, I think, come to the public awareness, and especially the younger generations in the last year or so. And Scott has put together a great presentation to explain what's going on with all the junk in our diet, our environment, and everything that surrounds us. So, Scott, I'm going to let you take it away.
Fabulous. Thank you, Rick. Yes, so strap in, people. I've got some serious information to run by you. It's a lot of information, and I firmly believe that everybody in America who has any connection to self-preservation needs to see this information, needs to share this information with the people they care about, and we will make this recording available later. So ask about that if that's something you want to do. So let me get my PowerPoints going because I have a zillion slides to get through, and we're going to get through them. All right. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. Give me a nod. Everybody's good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's topic is a health chat, not about any specific product, but I will let it be known that I am a Shaklee ambassador and I am a loyal user of those products, specifically for the reasons that you're going to see coming up here in a second. So I think we have to choose if we're going to buy a personal care product or a personal poison product. That is really the line of demarcation in this industry. So when you're going through the store and you're trying to make a decision, you should be looking for a specific thing. A couple of years ago at the national conference for Shaklee ambassadors, this guy was invited. Now, Ken Cook, I had no idea who he was. I had no idea what the EWG was. Yet in the background, he has been a major force in the whole environmental movement about getting toxins out of our consumer products. He came and spoke on stage, and I was blown away by this guy, the knowledge that he has. And I was also very gratified of how he felt about Shaklee Corporation and was just really amazed by what we have been doing for the last almost 65 years, 66 years now, with the in mind that don't harm a single cell in the human body. So this guy founded the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, and it has had some major traction in the industry of personal care products and other consumer products. So this is a mark you can trust. There are thousands of consumer products on the market, hundreds of thousands probably. It's overwhelming to know which ones can be a good choice for you. If it has this stamp, I want you to know how important this stamp is on those products. When you're going through the store, look for that stamp because this is what a company has to do to get the really the privilege of getting that stamp on their product. All of these must meet the product's submission. They can't contain any ingredients on our on the EWG's list of unacceptable ingredients. I'll share with that in just a second. You have to provide full transparency of what is in your product. And then you have to have some scientific standards and criteria about your programs and things that you've launched as a product. So I went and kind of dug a little deeper on the EWG site for this particular presentation, and I clicked on the unacceptable list for personal care products here as if I was a company and I was applying for their stamp. So this is kind of what it looks like. They call it the unacceptable list for personal care products, and they have different lists for different types of products. But for personal care, it's the table listing all the things as to what it is, why it is, how it's registered. The last page of this list ends at page 730. It will take you a while to download this list. It is a seriously long list with a lot of stuff on it. So if that gives you any measure, any metric about how serious these guys are about making sure that you can certify your product as an EWG stamped product, this is the real deal. It's got to be the gold standard in the market. So in 2006, National Geographic published this version of their magazine, and there was this little thing about the chemicals within us. I have held this as a resource for the last 20 years because it was so impactful of a read for me. I'm going to share you a couple excerpts about this article that's specifically about personal care products. David Duncan was the researcher and journalist on this, and National Geographic paid for him to have all of the blood tests that are typically done to detect specific things in the human body in blood and such. Extremely expensive. Back in 2006, it was $15,000 to get this many tests done. He had no real extreme exposure to anything over his lifetime. This is just kind of a normal guy. And when his blood panel finally came in, these are the things that he tested positive for in the colored circles. Of the things listed, I'm highlighting the dioxins and the phthalates here because those are some of the most prevalent things in personal care products, and we're going to talk about that. So here's just a normal guy, and as it says right here, as it turns out, Duncan can go toe-to-toe with a Midwestern cornfield for pesticide variety. 16 of the 28 tested were found in his blood. Don't try to set him on fire either, as his blood is rich in BDE 47, a common fire retardant that is now being phased out. So does this make him a freak? No, this is just a normal guy. So here's the article in a couple pieces of that article that show around our household the toxins that are around everywhere in pretty much every household in America. This area down here, bedroom and bathroom, is what we're going to focus on. Some of the things that end up in our bloodstream are from personal care products. A lot of them are stuff we've been around, exposed to, and been using for years are full of this kind of stuff. And I just chose the 6 most common prevalent chemical groups that show up in these products to talk about. So let's talk about parabens. These were deemed safe for the longest time. Many of the best companies had parabens in their products because there was no research. And as things started coming out, we found that not so. What are you looking for on the label? Any of these, methylparaben, ethylparaben, propylparaben, blah, 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 blah. There's 20 types, but those are the most common. Why are they used? They're cheap. They're effective preservatives that companies love because they can extend the shelf life of their product dramatically for very little dollar investment. Why are they controversial? Parabens mimic estrogen and other endocrine disruptors. The estrogen mimic is important because if I scroll down to the table here that we put together on parabens, when you look at the carcinogenic effects and the endocrine disruptors and the fact that they are mimicking estrogen, possibly, we're finding parabens in breast cancer tumors and tissue. So that is what raised the initial red flag. Then we started finding out more and more, and with more research, we found that in males, altered sperm parameters, reduced testosterone, and effects on fetal development in women, also altered puberty timing. So major things started popping up with these things, and any company that had those and did the right thing immediately reformulated and moved forward in a different direction and found an alternative. So why would you put all this on your body? If you see it on the label, why would you use it when there are clean alternatives? Let's move on to the number 2. Number 2, phthalates. This is in perfumes, hairsprays, nail polish, and there's probably 25 different ones that are synthesized, used over the industry. You're looking for things like DEP, DEP, MMEP is a little bit different. We'll talk about that one just so you understand. It's not going to be on a label. DEHP and BPP, what are they used for? They're used to make things kind of liquidy. It softens plastics like PVC. And yes, that is the PVC that they make plumbing pipes out of, right? Stabilizes your fragrances that are in cosmetics, and they act as carriers and fixatives for these fragrances to hold on and stay in the product longer. And when it's on your skin, helps it have that scent longer on your skin. So here's where they're controversial. These are all the systems that are affected by phthalates. Again, reduced testosterone and altered estrogen came up again for the endocrine disruptors. And in a reproductive and developmental stuff, male genital malformations. Okay, so we got this is that would scare a guy, I would think, about phthalates. Lower IQ, obesity, insulin resistance, asthma problems with allergies, allergic symptoms, and in animal tests, developing tumors and such. So nasty stuff. Well, here's what's interesting. Going back to Duncan's blood panel, and remember I brought up phthalates. What showed up in his blood was MMEP. So what is that? It's not an ingredient that companies are putting on the label, so you don't see it in the label. It's a byproduct that your body produces if you've been exposed to the dimethyl phthalate, which is the DMP. So that's where that came up. So if you see that you won't see that on a label, but if you do a blood panel, that's where it's going to show up. So this is what's interesting. Why is this stuff in our products? What's the legal basis for this stuff? Under the Fair Packaging Labeling Act of 73, cosmetics and personal care products needed to put everything on their labels, but they had an exemption for fragrance. This is the loophole. Same with flavor. Because you can write fragrance on your product label as a proprietary formula or a trade secret, that fragrance could contain as many as up to, or even a little bit more than 3,000 possible chemicals, all mixed together for one fragrance on that label of a tube or whatever it is. Isn't that insane? 3,000 possible chemicals. So consumers are confused. They think that fragrance has to mean something like an essential oil or something that has been extracted from a flower or whatever. No, these are things that have been concocted specifically so they can be a trade secret, so they can specifically be hidden under the label. Regardless of what they are, 80,000 chemicals have not been really tested for any level of toxicity in this country, in the United States. This is not so in Europe. Well, Europe has banned a lot of these things that we still use over here in the US. All right, number 3, formaldehyde and formaldehyde releasing preservatives, FRPs. I learned a little bit about this. I didn't know that they had these until I started putting this and started digging really deep into this. So formaldehyde is on the label as these types of names and sometimes hidden under friendlier sounding names. It's an effective preservative, but it is an absolute known carcinogen. Indisputable. It is a carcinogen. It does cause cancer. Then they have these releasing compounds. So what do those do? Well, they use the formaldehyde and they're able to meter it out slowly over the lifespan of the product to keep the preservative alive and shelf stable. They're really inexpensive. There's formaldehyde everywhere. It's used in pressed woods. It's used in uh, labs. It's everywhere, and it's easy to get. So companies see this as a cheap way to keep their products safe, shelf stable. They blend easily with things. And as we talked about the loopholes in phthalates, U.S. regulations still allow the use. And you can claim formaldehyde free on your product if the tested version of it falls below certain thresholds. So in other words, you can still have formaldehyde in your product, but if it remains under a specific threshold, you don't have to put it on the label. Crazy, right? So some of these formulas that companies have had for decades, change is expensive. They don't want to change it because reformulating with cleaner alternatives, it takes their product off the market for a while. It announces that they had a problem, so it's bad press. So they'll often stick with an old formulation just because that is the cheaper, most profitable way to go. All right, so let's look at some of the key effects. So as we know, known carcinogen has been known to be a huge irritant for people with respiratory problems. It's definitely reactive with skin, causes allergies with a lot of people. And if you look at some of the endocrine disruptor pieces there, oxidative stress, DNA damage, we know all about that. It's shackly people. And then can also irritate your eyes and mucous membranes. So these are some of the names you should be looking out for on your products. And once again, if you want to go back and look at some of these through the recording, so you can take a peek on this, a lot of stuff that the formaldehyde reducing or releasing is going to be hidden under that name. All right. Number 4, triclosan. Also, triclocarbon. The um, triclosan is the predecessor. So where do you find this stuff? Anything that says it's antibacterial. What is it used for? It is used for making any kind of soap, toothpaste, deodorant, where it has any kind of antimicrobial designation on it. So sometime back in the 1990s, it became very attractive to have a antimicrobial label on your product. People were really after that. But we kind of dug ourselves into a hole as consumers because this stuff actually never proved to be more antimicrobial than just regular soap. Regular soap breaks the cell barrier wall. Excuse me, I have a cat who wants to be in part of my presentation. Um, Consumers were deceived that this triclosan could be a better alternative to just soap. But as we know, soap breaks the water barrier on all cells, bacteria, and kills them just simply through water osmosis. So it was really more of a marketing move than anything. But as you're looking at the list as I'm rattling on here, a lot of different problems related with triclosan. And I'll talk a little bit about it a little bit later too, that we're going to come back to that. Let's move on to number 5. This is the oxybenzone and octinoxate. Should practice all this, pronouncing all these chemicals before I started this. But this is the stuff that you find in sunscreens of old. Anything that has a SPF factor, like lip gloss and BB creams, hair conditioners, that type of thing. So what are you looking for on the label? Any of these chemical names could appear as something else. So look out for these. And the reason why they're important to look out for is the health effects from when we put it on our skin, we have adverse reactions to it. Anything that absorbs UV radiation to prevent sunburn and skin aging, we have an alternative for now. You don't have to have this stuff in your product. But what was interesting about this stuff, it prevented the breakdown of the product from the bombardment of sunlight and that non-greasy formulations that doesn't leave your skin all shiny and greasy, really. And so people really like this. And it allows this product to put something on their label that it is a broad spectrum sun protection. But again, endocrine disruption, reproductive toxicity. A lot of people can be allergic to this stuff. And this is what really is kind of interesting. It's called bioaccumulation. It's exactly what we saw in the Duncan study with his blood panel. This, look at this, detected in 97% of urine samples in U.S. adults from the CDC National Health and Nutrition Examination Study in 2018. So widespread existence of this stuff. And then now let's look at the environmental impact of this stuff. I have been to resorts where they have to look at the label of the sunscreen to see if you are allowed to go in the waters of that resort because it's been known to cause coral bleaching in some of our delicate ecosystems in the oceans. So I will say I do know for a fact I've always traveled with Shackley sunscreen simply because that stuff is not in it and we don't have to worry about that as an issue. All right. Number 6 of 6 that we're going to talk about tonight. And this is the synthetic colorants that are put into these products. Look at these. You've seen them before. F, D, and C, red number 40, yellow number 5, right? Red 40 lake, blue 1 lake, all these things that you see in products, in mostly foods, right? And it's crazy to think that I'm like, well, what does FD&C stand for, right? Well, it stands for things that have been approved by the USDA and the at the FDA and the USDA to have foods, drugs, and cosmetics, FD&C. So that's what that is. D&C colors without the F are only approved for drugs and cosmetics. Did you know this? Okay, pretty cool. external DNC violet number 2, for example, would be approved for use on skin, but not lip or eye products. So that's what that little designation means on those labels. So in short, the letters are telling you where the dye is legally allowed in these things. I think it's almost laughable that the colorings that we put in personal care products are allowed in food. Kind of got to think about that for a second, right? So why is this stuff used, right? Mostly for marketing, right? Some of it has to do with maintaining a particular consistency for a brand. Like this product has always been blue my whole life, or Dial soap has always been that yellow color, or whatever it may be. That colorant is part of the brand. But again, mostly for marketing. It can also be used to attract children to specific products. Is another marketing tactic used by companies that use these dye colors, and they're cheap. So companies are obviously leaning towards the biggest bang for their buck to put in their products. So here are some of the health concerns. I think the one that really stood out to me was um, the fact that children have been linked to hyperactivity and stuff from some of these colorants. Uh, with obviously when it has to do with a food dye, but some of these um, some of these showed tumor formation in animal studies, and sometimes they have been banned in foods, but later they become still okay to be used in personal care products. Hard to understand that. So I'm going to give you some real life examples of stuff. I mean, this stuff is really happening in our marketplace. Maybelline, L'Oreal, CoverGirl, rest in peace. They found lead in dozens of brands and colors of lipstick. And we know that lead has no safe level, right? There used to be a minimum amount of lead you can consume in a year or a day or whatever it is. It is a neurotoxin and there is no safe level of exposure. So this happened a long time ago, right? Well, not really. 2012 is when it was finally deemed a problem and federal action was taken to remove and control lead going into lipstick. Forbes had an interesting article about this. In December 2011, the FDA updated its test and posted the results on its website rather quietly, but there were two brands where the lead level was at 7.19 parts per million and L'Oreal was at 7. And if you go down a little bit, it says the EPA's maximum allowable lead level in drinking water is 15 parts per billion. Yet on the lipsticks was 7.19 parts per million. This is a big decimal point difference, folks. So in 2012, it was really mandated to get that stuff out of the lipsticks. Is it probably still in there? Yeah. At lower levels? Yeah, but it's probably still in there. Unless it's tested for, companies do not know. All right, here's another one. You guys remember Johnson's baby shampoo? I grew up on that as a little boy, as did millions of other children. It's the yellow stuff and it's all sudsy and it doesn't sting your eyes and all this other stuff, right? Well, rest in peace, this formulation, right? Quaternium 15, it's a preservative that releases formaldehyde. Remember the formaldehyde releasing preservatives that we talked about? Known carcinogen. And then 1,4-dioxane, a byproduct linked to cancer. Remember Duncan's blood panel? I circled those, the dioxins. There they are, showing up in his body. Why? Probably exposed to one of these products. So, and it's marketed gentle for babies, yet contain cancer-linked chemicals. So when do you guys think this one got buried in the ground? I was shocked to find out 2014, 11 years ago. How long has this product been on the market? I'm 51. I remember using it as a child, and they didn't change the formulation until 2014. Isn't that incredible? I was blown away by that. There's another one, Colgate toothpaste, Colgate Total Original Formula toothpaste. Remember triclosan? We talked about that. It's the antibacterial agent. So this is a little interesting. We talked about how it's linked to hormone disruption, antibiotic resistance. I talked a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about that now. When we started getting really excited about these um, antimicrobial properties in soaps and things like that, we were all fascinated by the fact we can just kill everything and it will keep us safe from getting sick. And what we were actually doing was creating smarter and more resistant bacteria and viruses that can thrive against these types of things. So we basically made the enemy a lot stronger than it was by using these products. So it was banned in hand soaps, but allowed in toothpaste for years because it was marketed to clinically proven to fight plaque. When do you think this one went away? 2019. Can you believe that? I mean, 2019 doesn't seem like it was that long ago, right? 6 years. Unbelievable. So this came out of the New York Times when they talked about Johnson's baby shampoo. I forgot to throw this in. This slide got mixed up. My bad. Let's go back to the shampoo for a second. I'll read this. The shampoo has the same amber hue, the same sudsy lather, and perhaps most important, the same familiar smell that for generations of Americans still conjures memories of childhood bath time. But what's missing? The products no longer contain the two potentially harmful chemicals, formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane. And unbelievable, right? All right, so back to the other products. Jergens Daily Moisturizer, certain formulations of that, and Jergens Natural Glow Daily Moisturizer. Preservative system has a formaldehyde release agent in it, but it also contained a thing called BHT, another endocrine disruptor. And then they had phthalates in there to deliver their fragrance. It was hiding under the word fragrance. So what do you guys think? When was this buried in the ground forever? Don't know. Because in 2021, though it was pointed out, there are no public releases in the press, regulatory filings, or consumer recalls mentioned anywhere that I could find. So as far as we know, this one is still alive. It's still on the market. And the reason that gives me, the reason I say that is because if you go on the EWG site, these products are listed there containing those agreements to date. The last update was in 2021 with the EWG. So either the company hasn't done their update or why change the formula, right? It's expensive. It takes time. It brings bad press to your company. All right. We talked about triclosan used in hand soaps and body washes. Well, I'm happy to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that it was banned in the United States in 2017 in hand soaps and body washes. Manufacturers could no longer put that in their products, but it's still allowed today in other types of personal care products like toothpaste. What do you think is worse, soap or toothpaste? Start eating soap, people. It's safer, I guess, apparently. Unbelievable, right? Some cosmetics and other antimicrobial products that are not covered by that hand soap body wash ban, it still uses triclosan. So look at that on your product labels. If you see it, stop. Unbelievable, right? All right, let's talk about the toxic trio in nail polishes. Rest in peace. Well, it's still out. Yep. There is no headstone, ladies and gentlemen. It's a party. Nail polish is out there having a great time with its reproductive toxin, DPT, its neurotoxin, toluene, and its carcinogen formaldehyde. Even though in California in 2025, this year in January, it prohibits this in California. There are stocks of stuff out there still going through our marketplace that contain all this right now. And not only that, um, some of the nail polish products that are not actual nail polish, like hardener and other types of things, still use that in their product. So it's still out there, still having a party. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the end. And I thought I got that through pretty quick, but I hope I nailed it for you that you have friends and family using these types of products every day, all day, for decades, sometimes longer. because they're loyal to a specific product line. We're here to tell you tonight that there is an option. You can continue to use those products and continue to keep your mouth shut and just let the industry make those decisions for you. Or you can join us in a couple weeks to go over our latest What's New newsletter that some of you may have seen in your mailbox or your inbox. On October 20th, we're going to be talking about some alternatives to what I just told you about with the Shackley product line. And oh, look, Shackley's products are EWG certified. How about that? So they contain the stamp, they give you an alternative to this, and they work as well, if not better, than all the alternatives that we just discussed. This stuff is toxic, people. Share this, pass this along. I know that was a long presentation, but man, that little bit of information, which was a lot of information, is just the tip of the iceberg. Those were 6 chemical groups that we talked about. There are more. Eye opener, I hope, for sure. All right, I'm going to open it up for any questions or discussion.
Well, you scared me straight, Scott. Now there's 2 aisles in the grocery store I can't walk down.
Right. Yeah, the cleaning aisle and the personal care product aisle. Just stay away.
Yeah,
Fantastic, Scott. This is just mind-blowing and vital information. So thank you for all of this hard work.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sheila.
So,
Yeah, me and ChatGPT spent hours. I usually get this stuff done pretty quickly, but I just kept digging and there's more, and you dig and there's more, and the news is not good. So thank you, Sheila, for letting me know that.
hey, Scott, when COVID hit, antibacterial stuff was everywhere, for people to use instead of washing their hands. Is a lot of that still out there? I mean,
Definitely.
people
Yeah.
are, it's like at every restaurant and store, whatever, and you can just squirt that on and rub it in, and now you're free.
Most of those are alcohol based now. Triclosan is getting more rare, but you think about how many companies produce those products and stock shelves and had back inventory because of the demand that's still probably coming into markets, and maybe not in the United States now. Maybe it has moved on to other countries, but definitely not the EU, right? I mean, they're very strict on this kind of stuff, but I bet you can still find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was an eye opener for sure. And when you walk down some aisles with cosmetics and perfumes and stuff, the scent and the smell is so ugh, it
That is
just
why fragrance is
yeah.
so important to talk about on this call, because again, over 3,000 chemicals could be one fragrance. That's a
Oh,
chemical soup that's never been tested for toxicity. You mix one with 2, maybe you get a weird reaction or something of that nature. But even, that's an interesting point, Joanne. Some of the fragrances are added into products to mask the bad smell of the active ingredients that they put in there, right?
oh,
So it's
yeah.
not there because they want it to smell good for you. They're trying to cover up some of the bad chemical smells that are created during the manufacture of their product, just the chemistry.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Terrible. A great presentation.
Yeah.
Scott, I have a question for you.
Hi, Stefan.
Hey, man. Um, is there an app available where you would take a picture of the label and then it would run against the EWG list and all that? I'm
What
just
a
wondering,
great question. Label
right?
scan. I mean, being the proponent of AI that you are, this could be an
Uh-huh.
opportunity for you to
That's
contact
what I'm
Ken over
asking.
at the EWG and say, hey, how about this tool? It might increase their funding because they are completely nonprofit and they're always looking for donations. I mean, maybe that be buy this app and, that makes a donation to the EWG. Brilliant thinking. Brilliant
There is an
thinking.
app.
Is there, Laura?
Again,
Yeah, they do
Is
have
it
an app.
is it for the EWG?
EWG's Healthy Living.
All
Yeah.
right. I have been edified. Thank you.
Woohoo.
So
Very
maybe
good.
another opportunity is in there somewhere for you, Stefan. But I bet you're not going to be using the stuff that I just showed you anymore. If you have it on your, if you have it in your shelf,
I
you're
may not be brushing my teeth tonight.
Well, that's why you need to be on the call. In 2 weeks, you'll be able to brush your teeth.
There you go.
You know, it's interesting that a lot of our youth these days are not interested in the label so much as they are in the smell, because it smells nice. They're buying it, and
Yeah.
they're not looking at labels. They're not reading labels. They're not looking for the EWG stamp on things. They're just unaware. So please share this. Get it out. So I'll stop yapping so it gets shorter and we can send it out. People can enjoy watching this educated.
Thank you,
Scott,
Scott. That was
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you
Scott.
again for all that
Yeah,
research.
thank you
and
a
hard
lot
work.
for putting that together. And you said you used Chat GPT to do that?
I sure did. It
Boy.
was a very in-depth discussion because I wanted to make sure that my facts, figures, and information was correct.